Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please, let's quiet down. If you need to have a conversation with your fellow colleagues, you can walk outside the door and have that conversation. We're going to start this committee hearing. The Committee on General Government Operation, Appropriation, and Housing convenes the budget hearing. First notice was given to the media on February 26, March 10, and today is March 13, and the time now is 1:31. Committee will hear and accept testimonies on Bill 282-35 LS, the fiscal year 2021 Appropriation Act as requested by the Governor, relative to the University of Guam's fiscal year 2021 budget request. I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues that have joined me, and I know that Senator Amanda Sheldon, Senator Lee will be walking in any minute. We have Senator Mary Torres, Camacho Torres, mixing it up. We have Senator Will Castro and Senator Jim Winnan, and we do have Senator Lee here. I know the oversight chair of University of Guam should be here any second. General rules for the budget hearing. Those testifying on behalf of the University of Guam will be recognized by and invited to the panel. We should have Dr. Kreis, Randy, Dr. Anita Enriquez, and I think everybody else we have more than the three. Okay, we'll have Dr. Kreis recognize who they are when we get to that point. Those testifying on behalf of the written testimony may be read. Lengthy written testimony should be summarized to about 5 minutes. This hearing is on the University of Guam, so we'll have all the time available. Written testimony shall be submitted to the committee so we can provide my colleagues a copy of your testimony. Testimony shall be confined to the substance, should be confined to the budget of the University of Guam. Individuals will be allowed to present oral testimony only once. Once you're done, you may be asked to remain in the room for questions or for additional testimony, as may be desired by members of the committee. Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for these proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum may be restricted from providing oral testimony and/or may be asked to leave or be escorted from the room. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. You will state your name for the record. At this time, I'd ask the Sergeant Arms to ask the panel that are present to please rise, and you will be sworn in. I have some questions, but thank you, Sergeant Arm. We will now begin with the President, Dr. Kreis. Unless you prefer one of the other panels will start, you'll start.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And if you can, please identify who's up in the panel with you. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, honorable senators. Delighted to be here before you today. And I just wanted to acknowledge that we're all facing this challenge of the coronavirus, and we're pleased to be partners in our collective response, and we know the responsibility that you all bear as well, and we share that with you. And I particularly wanted to acknowledge the School of Health and Dean Margaret Hattori Uchima and her team for their particularly heavy work in addressing this challenge that we all face. So I'd like to introduce the panel then. We have our chair of the Board of Regents, Alvin Chang, to my far right, and then the Vice President for Administration and Finance, Randy Wiegand, and then to my left is the Senior Vice President and Provost, Dr. Anita Enriquez, and then we have two students, Darlene Gachalian and Ken Carlos. And then others in the room, I won't get them all, but there are people here that particularly for your questions, perhaps later on. Mark Duarte, our Director of Financial Aid, D. Leon Guerrero, our Vice Provost for Institutional Research, Jonas Macapinlack, our Chief Marketing and Communication Officer, Jim Hollier, Chief Planning Officer, Carlos Taitano, our Director of the Global Learning and Engagement Division, Kathleen Moorlin, the Executive Director of the Research Corporation of UOG, and Manny Hechinova, the Chief Information Officer, and there are a number of others who are available for your questions as well as Dean Lawrence Camacho, our Dean of Enrollment Management and Student Success, Dr. Monique Story, the Dean of the Libraries, and also head, therefore, the Cultural Repository Project, and I mentioned Dr. Margaret Hattori Uchima. So I think that covers many of the people present, and I have a number of other colleagues here with us. The students need to leave for class, so if it's all right, I'd ask them to make their input right away, and that allows them to run off to class, and then I'll take it up from there, if that's all right.
Yes, sir. No problem. You just identify yourself and then press the mic. Make sure it's red. Thank you.
Half a day. My name is Jomel Kennard Carlos, and I will be speaking on behalf of Mark Between, the 58th SGA President. So, to the esteemed senators of the 35th Guam Legislature, on behalf of the UOG student population and community, we would like to thank you for your hard work and continuous support. For the past years, the University of Guam has not been receiving its full allotment and have greatly been affected by it since then. From these shortages, it has caused the university to rationalize and prioritize the various needs of the university. Though they have been doing a great job providing as much as they can to the students, there are still a lot of work that needs to be accomplished but cannot be done due to the lack of funds. As you may know, the Board of Regents had just recently approved of the tuition increase to start this coming fall semester up to about 5%. With this change, many students will be greatly impacted. About 50% of the students qualify for the federal Pell Grant, and about 40% of current students have yet to register for the upcoming semester due to outstanding payments. The University of Guam is the backbone of higher education in the Marianas Island because of its affordability and quality of education. Many in the region rely on the university to reach higher and to better their lives. Many of our students are either single parents, working, or doing everything they can to be able to pay for college so that they can earn the education to create that backbone for our future. With the increase in tuition, a number of students may have to discontinue their education because it won't be as affordable as it is now. This will then decrease graduation rates, which will have negative impact on the professional workforce that our island needs. The University of Guam has produced a multitude of great students who have excelled throughout their degree programs and have contributed greatly to our island's community and welfare. If we are not mistaken, a great majority of you senators are alumni from the University of Guam. This demonstrates that the potential of UOG graduates have. We appreciate the work of UOG's administration team, faculty, and staff for all that they do to ensure that we students don't feel how negatively UOG is affected, and with the shortfalls in allotment over the past few years. And we greatly appreciate how hard they are working to ensure the quality of education and affordability of the University of Guam despite these struggles. Now we ask you, senators, to consider and take necessary steps to grant UOG close to, if not all, of the funds that they requested. Continuing or finishing our education. What we should be worrying about is studying for our tests, doing our homework, or applying for research to get real hands-on experience. Most of us chose to attend UOG due to its quality of education at such an affordable price. Now, if that's taken away, students will more than likely go off-island for higher education, which will then decrease the likelihood of those students returning to Guam to serve in the community. We all have dreams and goals that we want to achieve, and we believe that UOG offers us many opportunities that will help us reach our desires. As you all been saying, higher education is the key to our future, and we, the students, are the key to the island's future. Time and time again, that is always a statement we hear. Now it is your time to keep your promise and make that difference. I know it's hard deciding on what to choose to make, but we voted for you because we believe and trust you would make the right decisions necessary for this island's future. Please invest in us so that we may invest in our future and contribute to our island that we call home. Thank you. Respectfully, Mark Allen Between, the 58th Student Government Association President.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Hafaday Senators, my name is Darlene May Gachalian, a senator of the 58th Student Government Association. First, I would like to say it is a pleasure to be here today. I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to share my testimony. As a student and a member of the Student Government Association, I am becoming more aware about how the university operates and how they will be using the funds in order to fully function. Being part of the SGA, I have learned about the financial crisis the university has been facing since 2016. The University of Guam has been facing a shortfall in allotment for the past 3 years. This, along with the budget cuts, could lead to decrease of the quality of the education offered by the university. The University of Guam has an affordable, high-quality education. However, budget shortfalls could potentially reduce the quality of education the university offers. As a result, the university is forced to find alternatives to combat the funding issues. That means the University of Guam must cut back on projects such as the School of Engineering, reduce services that benefit the students, and also raise the tuition rates. We ask for financial assistance, yet we are still lacking funds. This is one reason for a decrease in enrollment. Due to Government of Guam funding issues, more students will choose to travel off-island and pursue their higher education elsewhere. I understand that there are other agencies on Guam who are in need of the allotment, but I believe that education should always be a priority. The students are the future leaders and innovators of Guam, and it is important to invest in us for the betterment of our island. On behalf of the UOG student population and community, we humbly request for our full allotment. Should we get the full allotment, us students are able to fully focus on studying and finishing our education rather than trying to find other solutions to generate more funding for our education. With the full allotment, we are able to achieve our dreams and goals and pursue more opportunities that will impact us students and our future. As senators, we hope that you will fulfill your promises, make a difference in our lives, and help students who will move our island forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Kreis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to Darlene and Ken, and you're free to go on to class then if you like, so thank you for coming very much. Could I also add that 2 regents of the university have joined us as well. Lisa Previto and Pete Diaz have joined us as well. So thank you very much for the student testimony, and I wanted to start this presentation by thanking members of the legislature for the many things that you've been doing to get to know the university and to show your commitment to it. So as far back as December, many of you came, or your staffs came, for our public-private partnership consultant training, and so it was nice to see so many there. I've met many of you one-on-one in recent weeks, and I appreciate those meetings. We also were pleased to be able to host a hearing or a presentation briefing for a number of members of the legislature, and we did a tour of campus as well. And then several of you were at the launch event for our new Parahulo strategic plan a couple of weeks ago. And then also we have, I think we have a picture of you all at Charter Day. We had a great turnout at Charter Day on Tuesday. And so you've heard a little bit about the Parahulo plan, and I just wanted to remark on a couple of things in our enormously complex university that might put some perspective into the resource needs of the university, as well as the investment return that you get on your investment in the university. And so the 2 examples I have are the nursing program and the School of Engineering. Thanks to some investments by Governor Lou Leon Guerrero, we're able to increase our nursing cohort from 30 to 45 in the current class, a 50% increase in the potential output of our nursing program. And then I think you're also aware that we now have 4 years in a row of 100% pass rate on the national NCLEX exams for the nursing program. So that's an extraordinary accomplishment. We have a superb School of Nursing, and particularly in this environment that we're facing with the coronavirus, we're reminded of how vitally important our nurses are. It's also worth noting that we the people of Guam, are spending as much as $8 million a year on the travel nurse program. If we can reduce the number of travel nurses by training our own nurses at UOG, we can redirect that investment into our own homegrown nurses. Another example is in our engineers. So we have 188 students in the 4-year program now. As we begin to provide professionally trained engineers for Guam, that will make it less necessary to spend as much as $3 million a year on the premium it takes to bring in off-island engineers for the many projects we all know that are going on for building in Guam. I've also had a great chance to talk to a number of you about our economic impact study indicating the impact of the University of Guam on Guam and our economy. So UOG generates $213 million of economic activity for Guam. That's 3.6% of our GDP. And we also generate $47.4 million in tax revenues, which is $20 million more than our appropriation in the current year. So that it's important to remember that the University of Guam is a generator of economic activity, of tax revenue, of productivity in our environment. It's not just a consumer of funds. And then I'd also like to just remind us all that the appropriation is really a statement of our values as a people. So we're indicating what matters to us in the appropriation. And so we're hoping that you can see through to support the University of Guam in ways that it has been supported traditionally over many decades. And we anticipate some severe contraction in the current year funding. We all do. We're all concerned about this coronavirus pandemic and how we have to deal with it. So we recognize that, but the appropriation itself is itself a statement of values. And then I think it's also important that in tough economic times that we remember to sustain the investment in the revenue-generating activities in places like the University of Guam. I think about comparisons to the situation, maybe investments in marketing Guam, say like Guam Visitors Bureau, that if you cut back on that, then you'll also reduce the economic activity. So you want to be careful about investing in sustaining the investments in things that generate economic activity. And then it's also worth noting that the investments that you make in the University of Guam have lots of benefits beyond the production of first-class students, as we have demonstrated here with our two representatives. So sustainability services, direct services to people with disabilities, business incubation, development of new economic activity and incubation and so on. There are many things that the university generates with the investment that the people of Guam make through the appropriation of the legislature. So now I'd like to turn to some examples of our students, of our graduates. So we did this the last time when you held the oversight hearing for us. We just thought we'd continue this and give you 3 samples of recent and not so recent alumni of the university. So Sarah Phyllis Camacho is an example from 2011, and I'll let you read her comment there. Filmmaker. Our second example, Meta Sarmiento, class of 12 with a 15 in Master of Arts in Teaching. And his comment, a teacher. And Anne Marie Munya, 1983, Bachelor of Science in Management and a BBA. Was also our commencement speaker in December. So a few examples just to remind us all of the product of the University of Guam, which includes many of you on this committee. And now I'd like to move on to further thanks to you for the language in last year's budget bill that avoids disproportionate allotment withholdings. That's made a big impact to our operations this year, and so I appreciate your effort to get that in there. We ask that similar language be included in this year's budget. And we're also grateful for the progress and development of the what we refer to as the 21st Century Bill. So this is the bill, the amendment to the charter of the university, helping to make the University of Guam a 21st century institution. And we also would like to commend you, as well as Governor Leon Guerrero and Ed Byrne at the Department of Administration for the consistent allotment payment. So this year has been remarkable, the first time in anybody's memory that we've had really accurate 1/52nd of the appropriation delivered every week, and that's been a real boon to planning and being able to manage. So really do appreciate that and hope we can continue that in the coming year. Our budget request, you have the full detail, but just a little summary of it here, 37.42 for general operations. And then, as you know, the special appropriations are activities that the University of Guam carries on behalf of the government of Guam. And so the $4.3 million in student financial assistance program, and at the oversight hearing, we had a good conversation, I think, about that, but happy to have more questions on that. Restoring that level, we'll have a little bit of more detail on that in a minute. Our Water and Environmental Research Institute and the Guam Aquaculture Development and Training Center, the Shrimp Hatchery, are two other special appropriations. And then also the Guam Cultural Repository, which is scheduled to be completed about Christmas time of 2021. And so that's an obligation by the government of Guam in exchange for the Department of Defense's building of the facility. And I'll just have a little mention now about the strategic plan, which I know many of you attended the launch event and have heard this in various ways. But the 6 strategic initiatives for the next 5-year period that will take us up until our next periodic review for our accreditation by WASC, the Western Association of Schools and Colleges. And so the initiatives there are to be recognized as a research university, as I've said in one-on-one conversations with you and in other situations. The research capacity and quality of the work that we're doing at this institution are really remarkable for an institution of our relatively small size. And this is an achievement of years of effort. It's a testimony to how superb our faculty and students are. There's tremendous opportunity there. And so developing doctoral programs will be one of the more significant, most noticeable things as we become more recognized as a research institution. Leading as a partnership institution is to accentuate our land grant character, the way that we partner with the community. It's in our DNA to be partners with all aspects of our community to advance our societies and to help us all flourish. And so being recognized as a partnership university and being thought of really early when people have a problem to solve or an opportunity to think about UOG as a partner from the beginning. Enriching the student experience will be important to both of those first 2 initiatives as well as everything else we do, helping to improve our retention and graduation rates as we have been doing. So we've moved up from 26% to 39% just in the past 4 years, and we intend to keep that going. We also recognize that the University of Guam is of course part of the government of Guam, but we want to be more of a model for operations and customer service in Guam and all of Micronesia. We need to grow our financial resources of all kinds, and we need the foundation of the appropriation to build these alternative sources of revenue, which can also help to establish new economic activity for Guam. And then building and sustaining our infrastructure is the 6th of our initiative. So happy to discuss any of those elements later as well. And then I'd just like to show a list of some highlights. So you might remember that we've achieved an 8-year accreditation by our accreditor in 2016. It's the first time we've ever had an 8-year accreditation. And so the length of the accreditation is an indicator of the quality of the review. We just had an interim review in our 8-year period, and we received 5 commendations, which is an unusually large number of commendations, of compliments from the accreditor, and so that was a remarkable achievement. We also have an 8-year accreditation for the nursing program, and as I mentioned, the 100% pass rate for 4 years in a row for our students. We have a 7-year accreditation for the business program and SBPA. We're pursuing the ABET accreditation for our engineers. This is critically important for our graduates to be certified as PEs, as professional engineers. So it's very important that we get this, and this is also very much dependent on our appropriation to secure that accreditation. Just a day before yesterday, we celebrated the installation of a new honor society, the Phi Kappa Phi, which recognizes the top students in all disciplines across across the university. So that's another way to certify the excellence of our program. And our Water and Environmental Research Institute was among the 12 of the 56 WERIs in the whole of the country. So they just labeled the top 12, and so we're remarkable for being the only island, the only territory, and the only island in that ranking. And then none of this achievement happens without the support of the legislature of Guam and our appropriation. And then a little more detail now on the economic impact study and the impact to Guam. So I mentioned earlier that we generate $213 million in economic activity, 3.6% of our almost $6 billion GDP. That's 2.47 times our total expenditure of $86 million and 7.78 times the appropriation in the current year's budget. So just to emphasize the return you're getting on your investment in the University of Guam. We also created 2,630 jobs. 1 of every 25 jobs is attributable to the University of Guam in current years. And this economic impact study pays attention to the production of just 1 year. It's not accumulative. The cumulative impact is even larger, but this is just the production of 659 graduates in 1 year. And in my one-on-ones with you, a number of people have asked, how have we coped with the reduced budgets of recent years, a combination of the cuts and allotments in the previous Adelup administration, as well as the reduction in the overall appropriation in the last couple of years. And so I have a couple of slides on this, and this one's just trying to get at the impact not only of those reductions and cuts, but also the problem of not keeping up with inflation. And so this adjusts our allotments and appropriations for the last 20 years, and it shows that we've gone from the value in 2020 dollars of a $40 million appropriation down to our current 27. So you see that sort of impact of inflation. So I'd like us to keep that in mind. It's a 31% decline in the purchasing power of the government of Guam appropriation over that 20-year period. And then the question about how did we cope continues then with the next slide. This is just sort of some detail to try to give you a sense of what we've had to cut back on or constrict or not do in order to cope with the budget that we've had. And so you see $3.5 million in salaries and wages, $2 million in debt service, $250,000 in capital outlay, and you see a number of other categories there. And really continue. You can do this sort of thing a year, maybe 2, but we're pushing into 4 and 5 years of this, and it's becoming very difficult to manage. And so we're really seeking some relief, some turning of the corner on that. Now I'll have a little series of slides just to highlight a few of those on that list that I just gave you. So the first on salaries and wages. And I'll show you our org chart in a minute to indicate how many important positions at the university are vacant or being held by somebody who's wearing 2 hats, so the dual hatting kind of problem. And some of these positions are really critical ones, and many of you run organizations and have been part of large organizations, and you know how important it is to have a controller, to have a facilities director, to have a safety officer, to have a chief information officer. And so in each of these cases, somebody's doing those jobs as an interim, and in almost every case moving up from a lower position that they're also doing on top of the top job. So we're unable to fill many faculty and staff positions in this constricted environment. We're unable to fill academic advisor positions to enhance the student success initiatives, and this is important for the success of our students. And then we're also to be launching the strategic plan in the middle of this kind of resource-constrained environment is tough. And so, typically you start such a plan with a significant fund that you can fund individual projects. And so we don't have those in the current plan. So here's the org chart. It's very hard to see, but I just want the effect of the red boxes, which are the unfilled positions, several of the ones I just mentioned, like the chief information officer, the controller, the director of facilities, and so on. And then that chart, of course, is the top level of the university.
Dr. Christ, as you identify and you highlight in red, those you want to fund.
Yes,
correct?
those are active positions that are now filled with interims right now, and we would like to be able to fill them, but we can't afford to fill them.
And what is the total cost for, you have two slides that shows
Right.
highlight. So what is the total cost of that?
So that's the one for 3.5 million is that's that
3.5.
figure, the salaries and wages figure.
Okay, and they're filled by interim? So you have money today to fill it then? If you
So
have
they're
people interim.
typically doing two jobs. They basically just moved up a level. So for instance, Manny Hechanova is the Chief Information Officer, but he's also the Director of TEDEO, which stands for...
I'm just trying,
Yeah, so he's doing both of those positions at once, basically.
You're killing two birds with one stone, okay? But I'm just trying to make sure, well, I'd like to also recognize my colleagues that joined us, Senator Sabina Perez and Senator Tello. But I just wanted to make it clear what that cost is.
Right, 3.5 million to
Because
fill the positions,
total,
right.
The total wrapped up is you're pretty much, and as you continue, you're asking a total of $12 million more than what the governor is offering that your budget should be.
10 million, yeah,
Well,
10 more, yep.
I have the number here.
Yeah.
It's 12 million. The governor versus yours. And if I just do the simple math, for now, because the students are here asking, if you can get as close as you, well, they're not the same ones. I prefer the folks that testified stay up here. If you haven't been sworn in, you can't sit in the panel yet. I'm sorry.
They
but
just moved up.
I wanted the students here. They haven't been released.
They had to
Oh,
go
you
to
got to go to class?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're going to class tonight, then, okay, otherwise stay up here, okay? I'm only concerned, Doc, is that as you identified and their testimony states, such as much as possible, the 3.5 will come into question, okay? And I just want to make sure we understand that, okay? Because you already identified the allotment is great. It's never been greater.
Right.
And that's what my colleagues and I agreed to.
The regularity
make
is great, it's
sure-
just the amount needs to change. So,
You want more, and that's understood. But that's what we all agreed when we passed the budget last year, is to make sure that the University of Guam gets its full allotment as scheduled.
and that's been terrific.
All right.
And I do appreciate that.
Okay, please continue.
So that's the top level one. Now I'm shifting to one of the boxes on that is in charge of a unit. This is the facilities and maintenance services and the management services. And so this is the total employment base of the facilities operation. And this shows in order to be adequately staffed to manage for our maintenance and our facility services people, we would have to fill all of those red boxes. The 3.5 million would not fill all of these, but I just want to show the relative shortfall that we have in a really critically important area like facilities. And so it's just to try to give you a visual about these without, it's too small to read, I know. And the next category is the debt service of $2 million. So UOG had $2 million annual debt service through fiscal year 19. We plan to redirect funding to build a fine arts replacement for our fine arts building and the Triton Engagement Center, a multi-use facility. But we're unable to fund that when the budget was reduced. And the fine arts building particularly is in serious need of repair, and you see a picture of it there. It's over 50 years old and has some serious challenges with ADA and safety and just basic operations. I know you've all been in it more than once and know the situation. And then another little detail then on the capital outlay of $250,000. The University Capital Projects Fund was depleted when allotments were reduced in fiscal year 16. So when we lost those allotments, we were able to sort of make do with some best practice funds that we had set aside. That's gone now. You'll see the same story in the student financial aid budget where there was money available, but that's depleted now. And so we have a number of these things where we've done everything we can, we've squeezed everything, and we've run out of that now. And so while we were able to cope in earlier years by sort of running these things down to zero, those are no longer available. And so a number of the critical lifestyle replacement needs are HVAC systems all over the place. Campus ADA is a serious issue that we are trying to address in many ways. security and fire investments, telephone replacements, which will ultimately save us money, but it costs us money to do the project at the beginning. And campus lights, solar and electricity, and backup generators and replacement water pumps are among those. And then here's some pictures of some of the things with some spalling there on the left. You see the darkened roofs that we've been unable to pay to have them cleaned off. The darkened roof, of course, increases the electricity usage, which then has a negative impact on our budget as well. And on the right, you see one of many air conditioning units in that state of disrepair. So in the budget request for this year, the current budget is 27.6 and the request is 37.4. And you'll see here the needed investments that are required to maintain our accreditation standards and to achieve our mission. So you see there the ways that these funds would be used: 4.4 million in salaries and wages, 2 million in debt service, 1.2 in capital outlay, 1 million in contract costs, and so on. And so I would just like to say that an adequately funded UOG can complete the hiring of faculty, staff, and administrators who will support student services, academic programs, and administrative functions. More faculty will improve retention and improve on-time graduation. Increase capacity for grants and contracts, gradually reducing our dependence on GovGuam. So we can, and we've actually proven that we can develop alternatives, but we need the sort of basic foundation to be able to do the kinds of things that we can do. And also to resume capital expenditures on facilities and address deferred maintenance projects that have compounded expenses. And now turning just briefly to the special appropriations, you see here the request for $4.3 million for the Student Financial Assistance Program, $670,000 for WERI and the Hatchery or the GADTC, and also $1.06 million for the Guam Cultural Repository. So I'll have a slide on each of these to elaborate a little bit. So I have one on the Student Financial Assistance Program. So you see here the dark green is the appropriation and the allotment combination there. And then you see sort of the particular drop in 2018, a little bit of recovery in 19, a little bit of a drop in 20. You see the yellow is our effort to collect on outstanding loans, and so that's helped bridge some of this decline. And then we also had an existing balance that we used up to fill in some of the shortfalls in allotments under the previous Adelup administration. So this just shows you the situation in the Student Financial Assistance Program. Our enrollments track this as well. So as we've had a decline in student financial assistance, the total value available in that program, we've seen a decline in enrollment, which is to be expected. The next slide is on Guam's Cultural Repository. So we're requesting special appropriation in the amount of $1.06 million for the new Guam Cultural Repository, which is being constructed with federal funds. We're pleased to have this facility on campus, to have it integrated with the Micronesian Area Research Center under the supervision of Dean Monique Story. That's great, but it's a facility for the benefit of Guam, and so our commitment, the commitment of the government of Guam to the Department of Defense was to support the operation of it if in exchange for the Department of Defense paying for the building of it. And so we have some of the artifacts there on either side, as well as the rendering of the planned cultural repository. So then just to close, so we really do need your support. We appreciate the help and support. We very much appreciate your presence at so many events, whether teaching or speaking to students or hiring them as interns or helping them learn government. All the different ways that you are engaged with the university is very important to us. So we ask that you approve our appropriation requests for $37 million for the general operations, $4.3 million for the Student Financial Assistance Program, $670,000 for our special appropriations at WERI and the Hatchery, and $1.06 million for the Guam Cultural Repository. And please also see yourself able to support the following: to avoid disproportionate cuts in budget allotments or enforce the exemption from BBMR and or the DOA allotment control, so a repeat of the provision that you included in last year's budget. Thank you very much. And then please allow for a continuing appropriation And then please also see to the passage of the 21st Century Bill. And we do recognize and understand that resources are constrained, and because of the current health crisis, we have anticipation of even more constraint. We do feel we have an obligation to relay the challenges we face. These are very frank demonstration of the needs of the university, and we want to make sure that you're aware of those as you make your determinations. And as we have, we'll produce the best university with the funds we get. It's a remarkable institution with an array of achievements that anybody would be proud of. So please keep us in mind for additional funding, and I do appreciate all the creativity and different ways that you've been thinking individually and collectively for ways to think of other supports for the university in many ways. And so UOG is a proven revenue generator for the island, and it's an investment that yields a strong return on investment. So, Tsitsutsumasi.
Thank you, Dr. Kreis. I have a few questions I'm going to ask you. I think you've answered some of them already, but I'm just going to ask it anyway. With the exemption from BBMR allotment release control authorized in FY 2020 budget, are there any issues with receiving your allotments?
So our allotments have been very regular, 1/52nd of the total appropriation every week since the fiscal year began. It's remarkable. We've thanked Ed Byrne in person. We've thanked Mr. Chairman and Madam Chair for your efforts to make that, and members of the committee. So,
Okay, we'll make sure it stays there in the budget.
That's
the
very
new-
important,
The upcoming
yeah.
budget, okay? Your request for capital improvement fund shows an increase of about 20% from 1.3 million authorized in FY 2020 Budget Act to 1.6. Okay, what is the reason for the increase? And what is the status on your ongoing capital improvement projects today?
Yeah, we have we had a loan with the USDA for the Student Success Center and the Engineering Annex. We've had some issues with the USDA on that, and we're still working with that. And we always think we're very close to getting it started. We've had some discussions this week that have indicated we're really close, and so we've got contractors ready to go. So those are ready as soon as we get the nod from USDA. We have another project. We were building a new science laboratory on the second floor of the science building. That's just about done. We've had a sewer project that we've been working on. It had been our drainage had been encroaching on another landowner's property, and so we've been working at correcting that. And then the cultural repository is the other one where it's a federally funded project, and the RFP's out. I think we've agreed to a contract on that, so we're
Okay.
just waiting to break ground on that.
Okay, Randy, Dr. Kreis, very specific, 1.3 what you're authorized, you're asking for 1.6, only 300,000, that sounds a lot more. Please bring it up, okay?
Oh, these are all different.
Randy, Dr. Kreis, just provide us a report about why you asked the 300,000 more, okay? That's all I'm asking.
I'll do that, yeah.
That's why I'm very specific, okay? Let's just go down the line and, remember, I'm an alumni of UOG, so I'm gonna try to figure out a way how to help UOG,
Yep,
okay?
thank you, yeah.
And most of us are here. So we're gonna try to figure out, okay, what we can do to help you guys. So I'm just gonna go down the question. I'm trying to keep it simple, so nobody thinks I'm attacking UOG. No, I enjoyed going to UOG, starting in 1975, so I know how UOG's grown, okay? Most of you probably weren't even there yet. UOG's financial audit for FY 2018 indicated internal control deficiencies relating to long outstanding receivables and non-moving inactive accounts. How are your collection efforts in late payments for tuition, and do you have a dollar amount for the outstanding payments? If you don't have the answer right away,
Okay.
I can appreciate it, we can get it, and I can
So we
provide
just have to
my
provide a
colleagues.
report.
Yeah, I can say, I mean, we've been very, very aggressive over the last several years on collecting past due payments. So,
You'll provide the report?
Yep.
Okay. You budgeted a new program under, okay, that's the repository, you already answered that. It's looking at federal grants, okay? In your Parahulu strategic plan, one of your strategic initiatives is to grow your financial resources. What progress have you made in the pursuit of additional revenue sources to diversify your revenue stream and reduce dependency on the government of Guam?
Do you want to report or do you want me to comment?
If you can answer
Okay,
it,
sure.
that'd
Yeah.
be
So
great.
some examples would be a recent one would be the Water and Environmental Research Institute has built the capacity to test fresh water, the whole range of potential tests. Most companies spend $20,000 to send samples to Hawaii to get them tested. We can now do that here more cheaply, which also generates revenue. Our professional international programs brings in 6,000 students a year, particularly from Korea and Japan, for relatively short English language immersion programs. That generates quite a lot of revenue, including $440,000 that's redirected to other aspects of the university. We have other kinds of professional training programs, non-credit training from the Global Learning and Engagement Office. We have a number of other potential options, and Dr. Enriquez, too, would like to comment.
Excuse Masi, Anita Enriquez, Senior Vice President and Provost. Within the first strategic initiative in becoming recognized as a research university centered on island wisdom, we want to capitalize and leverage the resources we have. The WAS Senior Commission has already endorsed our movement towards a full Chamorro Studies certificate program through our partnership, which is our second strategic initiative with us, Saipan. We are going to roll that out first. We also plan to hit the Chamorro diaspora market in the continental U.S. and other parts of the globe in order to offer that using online modality. What we also plan to do with our new professional doctoral degree, which is earmarked under the School of Education, on a cohort model, be able to offer our first doctoral degree in education. So we're very excited about that, among other things. So navigating through the online market, capitalizing on expanding in the veteran and military market segments, as well as other ways in which we can leverage technology to reach even newer markets is part of the plan.
Thank you, Dr. Enriquez. Just an update from your oversight hearing last month. Based on Public Law 34-151, any federal Pell Grant monies received will be used, first applied to tuition for merit scholarship recipients. How much money was saved, and where did that money go?
I think the figure is in the 350,000 range. We do have Mark. I think Mark is here. He might be able to give more specifics if you'd like a specific, yeah. And I could just say in the interim that Vice Chair of the Board of Regents, Mariflor Herrero, has joined us as well.
All right. Mr. Mark.
Good afternoon. Just looking at the last cycle, it was approximately 350,000, and that's based on the number of students in the merit who qualify for Pell. And the money that we saved goes back into the fund to address other financial programs.
Other scholarship
Other
programs.
scholarships,
Not
yes.
just other programs, because that's, wow, that's a long list.
Yeah.
I want to be very specific. It's a
Well,
scholarship.
it's a big pot, so the money that's saved goes back into the fund itself.
The scholarship fund.
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because this is for the record, okay?
Yes.
All right. In FY 2020 budget, allowed for any appropriation fund from 2019 that were not expended to be utilized for FY 2020 scholarship programs. How much was the unexpended fund from 2019, if any?
There was none.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you estimate any unexpended scholarship funding from FY 2020?
No.
Okay. See, that was easy, Doc. Now I will begin with, and the oversight chair will be the last, because she's, right, unless you want to be first? Okay, we'll start with, I guess this is a shorter list over here. So Senator Moylan, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the panel. Appreciate the presentation. It's very helpful. It's interesting. We had Guam Community College here this morning, and thanks, Mr. Chair, for going back to back. Specifically on your slide on page 10 regarding the capital outlay, many of these things Guam Community College did, the HVAC systems and the VoIP system for the phones and the campus lights, and they water pumps as well. And the good thing was when they did all these things, all the money savings that came about from those activities. So I really hope we as a body here can find the ways to provide you with the capital outlay that you really want, because then we can help the university save money in addition to that. And as you specified, you've been seeing these reductions on your capital outlay since FY16. And you're basically saying there's nothing left in the pot. The pictures that you provided as well, it's like the deterioration we see on Marine Drive. And without the lack of putting the money and correcting it, it's just going to be more and more costly to repair something that was much easier to do back then. I do want to say, at least, when I visit the university there and I go and wash my hands like we're supposed to, your bathrooms are still very clean and the soap is there and it's available, so I like that. Versus when I just came in from the airport and I get on the arrival side and they're refilling somebody's old soap bottle. So at least with you folks, you're keeping up as much as you can. So my support and my argument would be that I really want to see your capital outlay get approved, and so we can maintain the beautiful campus of the University of Guam. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Moylan. Maybe we need to self-quarantine only one time, but that's fine. That's just a joke. Senator Castro, do you have any question for the folks from the University of Guam?
I do. First of all, I want to thank you for coming, Dr. Kreis, and thank your colleagues for always going out of their way to meet with us, whether it's here. You paid a visit with me and Senator Munya, I believe, at my office, and again, the invitation to the university. And always appreciate you highlighting the exceptional and growing programs, and of course, I'm biased, sociology to be among them. But on a more serious note, I know that institutions, at least in the country, are taking precautions in terms of UW as an example, allowing their students to take the final online. And so while I'm going to ask you what you're doing in anticipation of COVID-19 hitting, or hopefully not, but at least being precautious, do you anticipate any impacts or an impact upon the university's enrollment, whether it's for degreed or non-degreed programs, one way or the other?
So, Senator, for the concern about enrollment, I'm hoping that this doesn't go on so long that it's affecting next semester's enrollment. But a slight difference at the University of Washington is they're on the quarter system, so they're very near the end of their quarter when they shifted. So in our case, we're prepared for shifting as much as possible to a distance format of some kind. And our Tadeo office, our OIT, our IT people have been working really hard to expand the capacity of our faculty to be able to offer courses online. So the faculty union and the faculty senate and all aspects of the faculty have been very supportive in thinking about ways to continue the education by all means available. So we're certainly beginning, the social distancing. We're prepared for a more serious curtailment of activities or reduction of face-to-face interaction that may come. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. In closing, I just want to thank you and your colleagues for the efforts of the Research Corporation International Dorm. I know we spoke about that last time. I might have gotten it wrong. Mailet Tati, reaching back to those who are off island, and also addressing the needs of our veteran community. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Lee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and welcome, Dr. Kreis and team. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. I know that my colleague, the previous speaker, had spoken a little bit about COVID-19, and we were talking a little bit about this with our your counterparts at GCC this morning. In terms of the talks of temporary transition to remote instruction potentially for all classroom-based academic programs due to this threat. What is the last day of this semester? When does this semester end?
Yes. End of semester is mid-May with commencement to follow about a week or so after that.
Okay. Well, we're certainly hoping that, all of any patients or persons under investigation, that everything remains negative and that we're spared from all of this. But in the event that this does happen, I'd appreciate it if you could communicate with the budget chairman any impacts that this might have to the University of Guam's budget in terms of transitioning to, where appropriate or where you can, remote instruction. I know that, certainly for GCC, some of those options it's not an option. They really want to focus on student success and have that. Some of it requires that kind of hands-on learning. But if you can communicate any changes in your budget that you can anticipate from a change to remote instruction, that would be really helpful for us. Dr. Kreis, also earlier in your presentation, you mentioned a request of $250,000 for capital outlay. And you mentioned campus security, you mentioned lighting. And I know I certainly, along with my committee members and the public, have a great deal of concern surrounding the recent machete attacks that happened near campus and incidences that involved former faculty. So I just wanted to ask if you can provide the committee with an update on any security issues on campus, specifically any theft, assaults or sexual assaults. And if you can please maybe quantify or describe to us any of the improvements that you've made since the last budget cycle in terms of campus security.
And I can say, before Randy comments, that we have a report that we have to make about crimes on campus every year as a federal requirement, so that will be I can certainly supply that right away. Did you want something?
Yeah, so we've been working on a project to put more cameras in and try to record what's going on. This year has been a down year for safety and security incidents. So we're thankful for that.
Down year in terms of
Medium.
incidences or in terms of?
Yeah, no, there's in the number of reports that go through the security office, it's been fewer. So we've had some thefts, but some of the other more aggressive crimes we really haven't dealt with.
Knock on wood.
And the federal report that you're referring to, Dr. Kreis, when is that? When's the deadline for that?
It's 10/15. October 15th. So we have our last year report online right now, and we can get a copy to you, and we can give a
Excellent,
summary.
I'd appreciate it. I also want to thank you, Dr. Kreis and team. I don't see Dr. Shelton here, but certainly the university is a leader in sustainability through CIS, through many of your energy efficiency programs that I know that you're running on campus, and decreasing the single-use plastics. And it's also my understanding that you may have, if not banned completely, really tried to reduce your use of polystyrene or styrofoam. And so I just wanted to ask if the FY21 budget will also continue is it a ban? Or a ban on styrofoam across campus?
Yeah, we've said no styrofoam on campus. Yeah.
Okay, great. I do have one more question, Mr. Chair, but I'll reserve my time and allow my colleagues to ask questions. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Torres, ma'am.
Buenas tardes, no, Presidente Kreis, Doctora Enriquez Toru Hamzugi, the Board of Trustees, Gi Universidad. We're very grateful and thankful for the fine work that you've done to make the university a great institution of learning for our community. And what I was reading with great interest was your discussion about student financial aid at the university and how you've addressed with the decline in student financial aid programs, the top-off scholarship program, which is offset or augmented any financial aid, and then also the work that you've done in aggressive collection of overdue fees. So those things that I read from your letter have led to a stabilization of sorts in the decline of financial aid. But I wanted to ask you, though, going forward, you know, one of the concerns that we have with the availability of a great institution on Guam for our island community is the accessibility. And what do you foresee in this upcoming academic year with what we see as not an uptick in financial aid availability? What do you see as the landscape for the university still being accessible, notwithstanding tuition increases or the challenge of getting more aid available for students? I'm just concerned for the ability of our students to really access the university as they ought to. So what are your thoughts on that?
Dr. Enriquez is leading a college affordability initiative. I think would be the best to comment on that.
Thank you, Senator, for that question. The College Affordability Initiative, which we began last year, was really to get extra funds in the hands of every single student on campus. A number of initiatives we have already begun, aside from consolidating in a single portfolio all the available scholarships that we have in both the University of Guam as well as the UOG Endowment Foundation, making that so that it's more visible in a one-stop shop and ensuring that we actually train all of our advisors so that they are aware of what is available so that can be passed on to students. The other initiative is digging early into the pipeline of students in high school, and we had just implemented providing access to juniors in high school to our university courses for dual enrollment as well as advanced high. Providing this opportunity deeper into the pipeline to these students allow them to earn the additional college credits to be better prepared academically to take on the challenges of higher level courses as they migrate from a high school diploma into full force university setting. We also want to ensure that there is a broader availability of campus employment for our students. We want to maximize on the available federal work-study pool, which is 150 slots, leverage AmeriCorps. Students leverage other types of federal grants so that we can give students both in the high school level as well as in the university campus access to even more funding. We're trying to prioritize and basically diversify that particular pool, recognizing there are students who may be at that last mile towards completion and having a dedicated funding source for both graduate and undergraduate students so that they don't stop out close to the finish line. We also have other types of dedicated private scholarships. I call it the sort of a bridge type of scholarship funding. There's one particular scholarship that is, we didn't want to call it the NatMat-C scholarship, the Menina scholarship, which really is intended for working students who don't qualify for full Pell Grant, but need that extra help. So any little bit helps, and we're also working with our scholarship sponsors to tell the story about, well, it's not all about the straight A student all the time. We have such a diverse pool of our students. We have also been working with the Student Financial Assistance Program with the top-off consideration. All the other scholarships under that program, the Nursing Scholarship, the Yamashita Educator Corps Scholarship, the Regent Scholarship, and so forth, all are required to engage in that top-off process, and that is the only reason why we try to implement that for the Merit Scholars. We recognize the that we fumbled with the most recent batch of merit scholars we onboarded, but we also want to ensure that we have sufficient funding to spread the wealth so that we don't leave any student behind. Thank you.
And I commend you and the Board of Regents for that outstanding work. Is this in part the reason behind the high passage and graduation rate of the university lately?
Well, there is intentional effort on wraparound services. We've engaged our faculty to study our students, our different types of students, the different kinds of needs, ensuring that we change requirements on the capstone courses, employing high impact practices, taking a look at more wraparound support for those students who have placed in remedial math or English. We've done away with remedial or developmental English. We've have much higher scores on those students taking the remedial math courses. We're very intentional of moving the needle in terms of degree completion. We went from a 26% degree completion rate during the last WAS site visit in 2016. We are up to roughly about 39%. That is a very impressive record, and we're seeing a lot of examples of high student achievement. The 100% passing rate among our nursing graduates in NCLEX 4 consecutive years. No other place in the nation can boast that kind of high achievement. Passing of accounting majors in the CPA exam, of our HR management majors in the SHRM professional exam. A lot of great examples of how we've demonstrated student achievement, and this is based on the hard work of our faculty and all the support by our staff and administrators. So really proud of where we have arrived at that point.
And a couple days ago, I was having a conversation with President Kreis, and at one point, many moons ago, I was a member of the Nursing Examiners Board as a public member, and the passing rate at that time and the challenge to the university was about 20% for nursing graduates of Guam. So to be at 100% rate for 4 consecutive years is incredible, and congratulations, and I commend all of you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sizus Masi, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Mary. Senator Paris, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for everyone for being here today. Yeah, I just had a couple questions. So the 8-year accreditation, is that the maximum amount that's given by WASC?
No, it's 10 years. I was reminded by one of the vice presidents at the Senior Commission headquarters that it is very difficult to get 10 years. Mm-hmm. I told our team, we will work on the 10 years for the next site visit. We are so ready. The only thing that we need to assure is that we are financially sustainable. And so that is the biggest concern that I have as an accreditation liaison officer for the University of Guam to the WAS Senior Commission, and also a newly elected member to the Senior Commission for the next 3 years. So we're going to be monitoring that closely and working with our team. Our folks are overworked, but very enthusiastic about supporting high academic excellence and high student success for our university campus.
So what were the elements that were needed to get to the 10-year accreditation?
The biggest part is financial sustainability. Mm-hmm. And certainly the areas related to academic excellence, the standards really are demonstrating that our programs are relevant, that the meaning of our degree really stands for high value to our students, to our stakeholders, that it means something, that they will be, that the degree is worth something in terms of the students' progression in life, socially and economically. Also in terms of our programs, are we proliferating and having way too many programs, or have we been intentionally ensuring that we consolidate our portfolio and make sure that we have high quality programs that we can sustain? We also want to ensure that we have been taking care of every type of student on campus. They want us to disaggregate our student population, dig deeper. Who is the most successful type of student? Who is the least successful type of student? What are you doing about taking care of this particular type of student? What are you doing to take care of your dorm students? What are you doing to take care of your athlete scholars? I mean, there are a lot of inquiries that go into this microscopic review. Getting 8 years was pretty impressive considering we were running, we were running from behind. And getting to 8 years in 2016 was a magnificent feat for many, for all of us. So we're very proud of that. Getting to 10 years, if we get it, great. If we don't, 8 years is still a very impressive record. Thanks.
Thank you. And what is your current student population?
Our current student population is roughly about 3,500 students.
And when you're talking about increasing your markets, what are you looking at as far as expanding that population, that student population?
Well, we recognize that there have been missed market opportunities. Being able to capitalize on the veteran military student market. As you know, we have a high number of veterans who live on island. These are not necessarily active duty. A number of them with benefits for their dependents. So we see wise children of veterans who are actually going to school. So we want to ensure that we work very closely with our military partners to ensure that we're doing everything we can to reach this particular market. A whole untapped online market of our Guam diaspora who are eager to access our Chamorro Studies program, our Micronesian Studies program. The partners that we have among our 2-year regional colleges in the region, Palau, the FSM, the RMI, and the CNMI. We have an agreement with all of them. They want to see more offerings, and they've asked if we would offer 3rd and 4th year courses and deliver it either on the ground or online. So we're hoping to, we hope to double our student population using these different access. Thanks.
I also wanted to add, in increasing the population that we have, in addition to the on-tap market.
And sir, your name? So
Lawrence
we'll know.
Camacho. I'm
Thank you,
the
sir.
Dean of Enrollment Management and Student Success, and also the Dean of Students there at university. But I wanted to add on to another, segment of the market, if you will, that's not fully tapped yet. And thankfully, I have now assumed the athletics and recreation, so I'm looking for opportunities there and how to really increase and leverage off of what we have currently at the university. We have 4 varsity teams right now with the men's and women's soccer, men's and women's basketball. We are adding a 5th one. Now we're adding a 5th one. We're not asking for too much money when it comes to the addition of that, but that would create a lot of opportunities for us. As we increase the capacity of our athletics and recreation at the university, become more attractive for the students. Now, what kind of students do we have, for instance, in the public high school that are very good athletes that want to come to the university but perhaps cannot afford it, and maybe don't have the grades where they think they can make it through the university? So some of the things that we're doing when we want to become creative in that aspect is, for instance, by next year, we will have 37 of our students in every one of those high schools every day mentoring students, and we're working this through the AmeriCorps and Serve Guam Commission. And that is an opportunity for us. So when I was talking to the athletic directors from all the different high schools last night, public high schools, that's one of the things is that they said, we probably have the best athletes that want to come to the university, but some of them don't even think they can make it to the university based on their grades. I said, for every one of those students that we're going to be sending out into the high schools next year, we're going to have them responsible for mentoring 10 students, and these are college students mentoring 10 high school students. A fraction of those better be some of those athletes that we want to get to the university to play varsity, sports at our university. So that's just another, talking to the counselors in the high schools, they say we are doing so well, I think, in the realms of helping the first generation students, the underserved students with the needs of income and all that, trying to get them through high school so they can make it to the university. What about the middle class? As proposed earlier, some of them are on the verge of making the requirements for financial aid in the federal world, for federal financial aid, but just can't get it because of the income that perhaps their parents are making. Maybe they're not first generation, but they're the students who really want to get there or want to stay there and actually complete, their degrees at the university. So how do we do that? We just got to be creative, and I was going to propose by next week a financial aid campaign plan that perhaps when we go out there and we solicit folks to increase the capacity of those scholarships for athletes, for the NAMAC students that are really trying to make it, it's going to have to be a deliberate campaign plan, and that's going to really leveraging off of the college affordability initiative that the provost office has launched and has put me on the verge of trying to get that thing moving along.
So the para-hula positions that you want to fund, does that tie into what you're talking about as far as ensuring that student assistance is provided, or at least the services are given to students who qualify?
Absolutely. One of the para-hula initiatives for student enrichment and the wraparound student success initiatives that we have is the military market, the untapped military market, and how do we become better at that. One of the action items for that is to become a military-friendly school, and as you heard in the press release last week, we were now designated of 645 schools across the United States as one of the military-friendly schools that have received that recognition. And so we continue to strive to provide that, and that's the veteran market and perhaps active duty market that we have here in Guam to come to our university.
How would that affect curriculum if you're bringing different populations in? Would that adjust the curriculum, or how would that change the curriculum?
I'm sorry, Senator, just a clarification, how would that affect the curriculum or the delivery of the curriculum?
Yeah,
or?
so if we're, if the school is being marketed to other groups of people, would that change the curriculum that you guys have right now?
Not at all. I mean, the curriculum should not change. The access and the mode of delivery may be augmented, may be tweaked just based on what other facilities are available. For example, with the Guam National Guard, there is a training facility that has been offered to us to reach out to our Guam Guard members and bring the course or courses to them at their site. We've actually utilized other sites in Hagatna and Tamuning to deliver courses. If it requires online modality to places outside of our borders, then we can arrange to do that. We are well equipped within our Office of Information Technology to be able to provide faculty and our adjunct instructors access to that with full support from our particular office.
So another question regarding, so Weary actually came to me and presented their budget, and I would like to actually invite them up to the table, and if they can talk about their request for an increase. So Dr. Jensen, I don't know if you're willing to speak to the increase to Weary, that Weary's requesting.
Sergeant at Arms.
It's Dr. John Jensen, Director of WEARY.
Sir. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Dr. Jensen. Yeah, so I just wanted to give you an opportunity to speak to the increases that you're requesting for Weary.
Okay, thank you, Senator. We prepared the budget to restore the funding level for WEARY back to what it originally had been. So the budget reflects the equivalent of $250,000, which was the original allocation. We're on the schedule to give a detailed presentation to the legislature on the 14th of April.
Can you speak to some of the highlights of the increases?
Yeah, the Public Law 24-247 that established the Guam Hydrologic Survey mandated that we provide research on water resource problems on Guam and conduct professional development and outreach to get that information to policymakers and to the educators and general public. So we have in place a Guam Hydrologic Survey a research program which is currently focused on groundwater modeling to identify the sustainable yield of the aquifer and look at contaminant transport, nitrogen contamination in particular. And we have been conducting what we call the aquifer tour, the aquifer field trips for legislators, agency heads, senior executives. We just this afternoon coordinated rescheduling because of the impact of the coronavirus. We're going to have to reschedule and reformat those, but we'll be getting back to people on that. The one of the really successful programs we've had is what we call the Guam Water Kids, where we teach the teachers to conduct water resource education in the schools, and that's been a very successful program. We've got through hundreds of students through that program. We have outreach program of workshops which we invite the professional community to from the private sector as well as the public sector and teach. One of the things we covered this year that's been very successful has been lessons learned from drilling wells around the aquifer. We found that capturing this information and sharing it between the drillers, the designers, the regulators has allowed for much more effective management of our water resources. We're doing a rehabilitation study of the Santa Rita Spring for GWA, and we're going to be reporting on that pretty soon.
Yeah, so thank you. I think the work that you do is very important because it really monitors the state of our aquifer, and it's really the basis of our sustainability on our island. So I noticed actually in the budget you're requesting 2 additional staff. Is that correct?
Well, those are positions for research associates and students. One of the most successful aspects of the program has been that we provide student research assistantship for students in the environmental science program, so they earn a degree while doing research at WERI. And the positions that we put in the budget are soft money positions, which depend on funding. If we get the funding, we support the student. And the presentation we have prepared for the 14th will contain all the details on that.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Jensen.
Okay.
So this question could be for Dr. Kreis. So I'm looking at the budget. According to the 2021 budget, there's $54 million in revenue and expenses. In your presentation, it talks about 80-some million. Can you explain the difference?
Yes, Senator. The sources of revenue for the university are very varied, from WERI to research grants. So probably the biggest single element of that difference would be the federal research grants from the National Science Foundation, National Institutes of Health, those kinds of things. So the research funding comes in and it's earmarked, of course, to carry out the research. So the money that comes in for that generates a lot of economic activity, but it not money that can be used to support unrelated activities. So that would be I can get you, complete detail if you'd like more. So yeah.
Thank you. Just maybe a couple more questions. So as far as energy savings, what is the plan for UOG to increase their energy savings on campus?
So thank you, Senator. So we have 5 solar arrays at the moment. So that's one element. We'd like to expand those as well. We have established standards for LEED silver level construction for future construction. We have another category called SEER level efficiency levels for air conditioners and other equipment. So we've established standards to sort of elevate the efficiency of the campus. And certainly having the Center for Island Sustainability is a great way to focus our attention on those things. Are there other things you want to mention?
Yeah, so we've been working with the Guam Power Authority. They have a contractor that they've been bringing to their clients, customers, and so it's Siemens that we've been working with, and they've done essentially an audit of the campus, and they've identified many areas where for an investment that we can reduce our energy footprint, and that is one of the impetus behind the 21st century bill. That in there is a section that would allow us to borrow funds for these small projects on our own, but the funding and the financing, we thought that Siemens was going to be able to help us identify financing for that. They weren't. So now we have this list of energy savings projects that would pay for themselves, but we're stuck on the loan piece. So we were, when the 21st century bill gets passed, that will help us in that.
Maybe just one more question. Where is it? Oh, actually 2 more questions. Regarding the aquaculture, what is the status of that?
Maybe I'll ask Kathleen Moreland, the Executive Director of the Research Corporation of UOG, to comment on that. She's our lead on that topic.
Thank you. So we have actually entered into a contract with a private contractor, and this is part of our public-private partnership. Research is still
Can you
going on.
start
with my name?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Kathleen Moore-Lynn, and I'm the Executive Director of the Research Corporation of the University of Guam. So again, we have entered into a lease and public-private partnership with a private partner, and so there is investments being made on the part of our private partner right now in the facility, and his primary focus is to increase production. And so he is planning to have the first export of fry later on this month, if there are flights. So we got to this point, and now, the airline industry is crashing. But anyway, so we are looking forward to that. There are sales going on locally of white Pacific shrimp, which is the pathogen-free shrimp. And that has been down at the Fisherman's Co-op and has been available for purchase at other places as well. So we've got 2 things going on, and one is local sales, and the other one, which is really the most important one, is the export fry. So we're just beginning.
Excellent. So the appropriations that we had last year, $115,000, and then this year's the request is $114,000. May I ask where is that being used?
Well, I would like to pass that to Dr. Lee Yu-Dean, who's the dean of the Center of College of Natural and Applied Sciences.
Buenos Hafade. My name is Lee Yu-Dean, the Dean of the College of Natural and Applied Sciences. It's a great question, and I'm glad you asked the question, Senator. The big aspect of having this public-private partnership is that we at the university really want to grow and enrich our graduate program in aquaculture. So what I was planning to do with this money that we received from the legislature is to use that as matching to scholarships. One of the aspects of the agreement that we had was that, not this first year, but starting the second year, the rent that we'll be receiving from the private corporation will go specifically into scholarships for our master's program. With the help of the legislature, I hope to double the amount of full scholarships that we could provide for our local students in the field of aquaculture. So I think it's a win-win situation to specifically grow this industry. So thank you very much for the question.
Great, thank you very much, Dean Udine. So last question. The cultural repository. So this funding to construct it came from DoD funds. So the $1 million, was this anticipated? Could this been a part of the, oh great. Could this been a part of DoD funding too as well?
So I'll pass that question to Dean Monique Story, the Dean of Libraries at the university, which also supervises the Micronesian Area Research Center, which will oversee the staffing of the cultural repository.
I'm Monique Story. So the quick answer is it was an anticipated expense in the sense that the grant that provided the construction was only for construction. It was always understood that the Office of the Governor or the Government of Guam was to be responsible for the operations on the first day of the opening of the repository. Since we are now approximately 17 months out, 18 months out, then it means that the doors will open during this upcoming fiscal year. And so when we looked at what it would cost to run the repository, that's where the operations of $1 million came in.
And there's a breakdown of that somewhere in the budget, I'm assuming, as far as the $1 million?
Yes,
okay.
there is.
Okay.
Did you
right.
want me to
yeah,
run
if you
through?
can, yeah,
Sure.
expound.
Okay, in our special appropriations fund budget, we have requested we have requested $537,964 in salaries and benefits. There is a request for $3481 in off-island travel that is set aside for the curator and or the archivist to be able to attend the respective organizations professional organizations, because at these council meetings or their professional organizations, there is a specific there's a specific session where they talk about what funding opportunities are available and grant funds, and they are only available to those who attend those sessions. So we saw that as a necessary investment so that we could actually leverage that to provide for additional funds for the repository. There is there is $72,684 in contractual services that is set aside for specialized maintenance as well as curation and or conservator services that would not be available by the staff themselves. So that would be like if we recognize that there were World War II guns that were found and they needed to be preserved, that we could bring in somebody who works specifically with metal conservation. We set aside $24,188 for supplies. and that is to invest in the archival quality boxes, as well as all of the tools that we would need to do the day-to-day services. For equipment, we request 3231, and that is for the investment in computers and software. Specifically, there is a specific software that is used for archaeological repositories, and that is the Past Perfect. It is the same program that is being used at the Guam Museum. That way we can make sure that we can share data across both agencies. Under miscellaneous, we have 38,887, and that is for preventive maintenance as well as pest control. This is actually a portion of the federal maintenance that is expected. We are expected to maintain the facility in all respects for a period of 30 years. And the National Park Service actually has a set of guidelines of what routine maintenance are supposed to happen on the daily, monthly, quarterly, and annual basis. And so that preventive maintenance allows us to be able to do that. And then in capital outlay, we are requesting for a 3D scanner, and that is so that we can actually take images of the artifacts so that we can put this into a database so that individuals can actually look at the 3D artifacts, or, I'm sorry, a virtual artifact versus handling it on first need. And so then that provides protection for the actual artifact until we determine that hands-on interaction with the item is necessary. And it still allows for more analysis at a greater level. And then we have budgeted utilities, and so that is $371,310, and that was actually calculated based on, I looked at how much it cost to run the Fieldhouse facility as well as the next building on campus that is going to be approximate in size, and then looked at what other institutions of similar size were using in terms of water consumption, power consumption, based on what we need that facility to do. And then we multiplied it by, we calculated that wattage or that water consumption level based on the GWA's commercial rate as well as the GPA commercial rate.
Thank you so much for that breakdown. Considering the construction of this facility, are there energy solar panels or conservation measures that are going to be built into the construction of this facility, and would that have an effect on the estimation of the utility cost?
The building is designed to be LEED, so we do anticipate as many of these types of measures, and so yes, if they do get put in, then there will be some offset.
And regarding the salaries of the staff, are they going to also be, perhaps can they be used for training for archaeologists? Are the staff archaeologists, and are they going to also be able to provide curriculum to the students? Could it be a new program that can help fill positions at our own State Historic Preservation Office?
Thank you for asking that. That is actually one of the reasons that we wanted to have this repository at the university, is because we are looking at it as a way to expand the way that our island is able to, actually our region is able to deal with our antiquities. So yes, we have actually already in place a plan to provide preservation training and we are putting it into a certificate type program. And so the classes are already placed into the UOG's schedule of courses. And so if a student is in Micronesian Studies, Chamorro Studies, that they can take that class. We also have a curriculum designed out. So for the different technicians that are at the Guam Museum, or any interested student or any individual who wants to do this as a professional development opportunity, that they have that as well. Our long-term goal is we're looking at how can we incorporate this into a very robust preservation professional degree.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr.
Senator
Chair.
Purse. Senator Tello-Tadiwi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Being last, everybody asked most of the questions I had, which is good. So I'm just going to first thank everyone for being here today and being patient. I promise it won't be too long. Since we're talking about the last subject matter, I believe there's something in the problematic agreement that the military buildup has set aside money for a reciprocatory building or an area to put in there. What is USG working to collaborate with that? And are you going to receive any funding at all from this?
That line item in the programmatic agreement is actually the construction grant that will build the repository building. And as I had said, that grant is specifically for construction of the facility. The way that the request for proposal was designed to build the building was designed so that it was both for the physical construction as well as for outfitting some of the major equipment that's in there. And so that's so we are working. We're working with a group of different agencies, both federal as well as local government agencies, so that we can make sure that we are aware of all of the different considerations and regulations to carry out that.
Okay, if I'm not mistaken, there's something in there that provides for a 10-year timeline to provide the assistance that you need, other than it's structural. And if it's not in this problematic agreement, I call it problematic agreement. It's from 10 years ago when we first started this, but that there's an opportunity because I guess what they're doing is revisiting this for renewal coming up. So it might be an opportunity there to reach out to the Department of Parks and Rec and incorporate that into the renewal of this problematic agreement. Okay?
Thank you for that suggestion.
Yeah. My next question is to Kathy Moreland, and we were talking about the fisheries and the hatcheries, especially with these shrimp, the products. Now, I do understand the private-public partnership and moving forward in that, but the question is, do you provide a bid? Because I was approached by an individual who felt that they were shunned out from the University of Guam. They were willing to be one of these private companies to come in to work on building a shrimp farm here on Guam. But there was nothing there that would give a bid for these individual companies to come forth, and that the university just picked one out of the hat, or so how does that go? So I don't understand what you're saying.
Yes, we did post an RFP, and it was published. It was up for 30 days. We had some inquiries from other individuals, and who said, well, maybe they needed more time. And so I said, please send a formal letter, and then we could perhaps extend the date. I never got a formal letter from any other company except for the one, Core Seed Aquaculture Guam, which did submit a proposal to that RFP. We had a selection panel. We had members of GITA sit on the selection panel with us to go over the application and ensure that they had submitted everything that they needed for that. So we did follow the process, and we were lucky enough to select a partner who is very willing to work with us in to build this industry.
Thank you. That's good to hear, and I'm hoping they're listening as well. How many years are you going to have this public-private partnership?
It is a 30-year partnership.
30 years? Okay, 30 years. I'm just curious because the Guam law only says that you're allowed to go into 5 years contract. Anything above 5 years has to go through the legislature.
Because this was run through the Research Corporation, and the Research Corporation is allowed to enter into leases.
So it doesn't receive any government funds?
No.
It's okay. I'll look
No,
into
there are
that.
no
Thanks.
government.
Okay.
No government funds.
Okay, I'll check that out later. Thank you so much on that one. The other one I have, it was talked about federal funds earlier, Dr. Kreis, with regards to receiving them and the amount that you do receive from the government Guam and the amount you receive from the federal government. You don't really have a number with you right now on how much funds do you receive from the federal government or grants?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. Do you want? Well, so I'm just looking at a chart here for the various categories. This is of fiscal year 18, so the appropriation, including special appropriations, and sometimes those get folded in and sometimes not. So in this figure for 18, it was 36 million out of a total of 95 in this total.
What page are you on, sir?
This is an extra piece of paper that I'm just,
okay.
with some of the breakout. So I could do it in percentages. That might be more helpful.
A percentage, just a
Yes.
percentage of...
Yeah, so 38% is the Gov Guam appropriation. The grants and contracts, so this combines research grants as well as contracts like CSUs and other kinds of contracts, is 36%.
Okay.
So it's nearly the same as the appropriation level.
Okay. And of the federal funds that received, of the use of all the funds, are you having any issues with spending any federal funds, or are you spending them all?
Oh, so the University of Guam has developed a very high level of ability to execute grants and contracts in a very efficient way. So, and that builds confidence. One of the reasons that we now are able to attract so many prestigious ones as well as sizable ones is because of that confidence and the ability to execute that. So that's something that's very valuable about the University of Guam to others in Guam, is that reputation for being able to execute those
Well,
contracts
thank you
and
so
grants
much for
really
taking
well.
the time to and ensuring that those grants are spent correctly, not only, and all of it spent. Okay. The next question I had is the Rhino Beetle program. Is that under the University of Guam? And how much funding do you put into that program to assist with this the eradication of the rhino beetle?
So we'll continue with our musical chairs and
Okay,
ask
no problem.
Dean Ludine to come back.
Or
sorry, Kathleen Moreland.
Kathy feels comfortable
And
around
Lee
me.
Ludine.
We're gangs from way back.
So I think there's multiple grants addressing the rhino beetle, several with the College of National Applied Sciences and several with the Department of Agriculture that are running with through MOUs through the University of Guam and the Research Corporation.
Okay. Any government from the general fund at all toward this? Because once upon a time, back in 2008, then Senator Ben Pangilinan, the late Pangilinan, he appropriated $300,000. I think it was first year, then another $300,000 from general fund money to assist. So from that time, have you received any general fund money to help with the eradication of the rhino beetle?
Madam
None?
Senator, I believe so. I don't think currently we are getting anything, but there was quite a few years that we did get money. It definitely helped, and I have no problem getting back to your office to talk about when the last time we got it and how we used that money, but it was extremely helpful for us to try to go after that particular
Absolutely.
project.
Well, I have a meeting with Dr. Kreis, so please make sure you join us in that one, because I still need to follow up with that meeting. Thank you for that. Last one, it was brought up about security on campus. Do you have any cameras around campus?
Yeah, we do have many cameras, and some schools have put up their own cameras. The number's growing.
Okay, great.
But we have a long way to go in what we'd like to be. So we have we have a plan to increase the number of cameras.
Okay, I appreciate that. That really helps. It really does deter a lot of people, and I'm glad to also hear about the revenues that you're trying to build within the University of Guam on the water testing, et cetera, down the line. So what have you done as far as cost-saving measures within the University of Guam?
Thank you, Senator. The Good to Great program, which was the key feature of the previous strategic plan, cut 25% of our academic programs, and Dr. Enriquez referred to the efficiency, figuring out what we can do, what kinds of programs we can support, given our population and the sort of demand for different kinds of degrees. So there are many efficiencies that were realized during the Good to Great program. One measure of the relative efficiency of an institution is the ratio of staff to faculty. And so in the most of the country, you have a range of staff to faculty of between 1.8 to 1 to 2.2. So a very well-resourced institution like Stanford University is at 2.2 staff members for every faculty member. A very lean, efficient university would be at 1.8 to 1, and the University of Guam is at 1.6 to 1. So it's sort of on the edge of lean to it's almost it's a little too it's too much, too few staff really supporting the enterprise, but it does indicate that there's a lot of efficiency going on. The red boxes I showed you on the org chart is another indication of that. So it is a very efficient organization, although in certain ways, as we've talked about, the efforts for becoming more efficient in terms of energy and so on, if we could get the initial capital outlay to implement the Siemens program or more higher level lead certifications and so on, we could eventually save even more money, but it takes some initial outlay to make that possible. Mm-hmm. Just as if we can build our capacity for our nursing or engineering program, we can save some of the 11 million we're spending on off-island nurses and engineers. Same sort of thing, but it takes some initial investment to be able to realize that capacity.
Okay, thank you for that. And I look forward to our meeting coming up next week. I'm hoping to put into play. But the last question, Mr. Chair, I just need to know what the status is on the Guam Cancer Trust Fund. What is the status?
I can start. I mean, it's going fine. They're making awards. We had an audit. We've responded to the audit. We've implemented most of the recommendations that were made for that. So it's moving along. Do you have something to add?
And Dean Margaret Hattori Uchima might be able to. Oh, sorry. There's Rachel Leon Guerrero, the Vice Provost for Research. And yes.
Hapaday. I'm Rachel Leon Guerrero, Vice Provost for Research and Sponsored Programs. And I'm also the chair of the Guam Cancer Trust Fund Council. So as of today, we have awarded for FY 2020, we have, let me just get my notes here. Sorry. We've awarded 3 grants to 3 different organizations, and there's still a 4th organization that's pending, and we're still in negotiations with that organization. And so all total, once those are executed, that will equal $2.6 million that we will have awarded. And so currently, as of January 31st, there was $3,063,212 available in the trust fund. And so we've just kind of done some calculations and figured that by the time we spend what was already encumbered currently, plus the 4 contracts to the 4 different organizations, by the end of the fiscal year, we'll have less than $1 million that's unencumbered. So we're making really good progress getting the money out there to organizations that are issuing assistance to cancer patients.
And how soon will these 3 individual grants that have already been approved will receive the full amount that was granted to them? What date?
their contracts were already approved, and we're just waiting for them to start sending us their first invoices.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's good. Oh, that's good to hear. That's really good to hear. And the fourth pending?
The fourth pending, and I'm sure that some of them, they might have come to visit you. That organization, we are just waiting for them. They were not, they didn't like the terms of the agreement with the dates, and so we're kind of just waiting for them to, we've extended our hand, and we're just waiting for them to respond.
The other three individuals that received the grants, they had no problems with the agreement that you had?
No.
It's just this one particular group?
Correct.
And what is the issue? Other than the, what you said earlier?
They wanted us to date their contract back to October 1st, the beginning of the fiscal year, and we told them we can't do that. We can't backdate a contract. That we don't want to get in trouble, so.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I really wanted to know about this. It's very close and dear to my heart as well. So just must, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Good move. Don't backdate. Maybe post-date a check, but don't backdate. You know, we had one student earlier provide a testimony, and he had to go, I think he had to go to class. And that's Mr. Angelo Pauli. And I'm just going to go ahead and read his testimony. Half a day, my name is Angelo Pauli. I'm writing this testimony in favor of increasing University of Guam's budget for the next fiscal year. Yeah, I know you like that, Dr. Christ. This past year, the University of Guam instituted both a sudden tuition raise that they later extended to allow for easier adjustment, and a change in how students who received the merit award had their scholarship calculated. That parenthesis, Public Law 34-151. I do not agree with how the university handled both instances. However, I recognize that part of their decisions was due to budget shortfalls. Surely the university is doing what it can with what it has. It will benefit both the students and the higher-ups at the universities, two factions who were sometimes at odds this past year, for you to allocate some additional financial support to UG. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Angelo Pauli. He's in support of the budget, okay? So you're halfway there, Doc. Senator Lee, I know you had a question you wanted to ask before I give it to Senator Amanda Sheldon.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just while we've been in here, received an email from Jackie Hansen, I think Jonas, and I just wanted to give you an opportunity to make an announcement about the upcoming conferences. I know that there were changes to UOG CIS, which many of us attend every single year, and I think a majority of us are already registered for, and then I think GSAT. So, Dr. Kreis, if you'd like to make those announcements.
The announcements about the ending for the Island Sustainability Conference. Yes, so we're, Dr. Austin Shelton has, director of the Center for Island Sustainability, and his team are working on sort of a hybrid arrangement for maintaining the Island Sustainability Conference in a virtual format for the scheduled week of the 30th of March, and then to be planning for a face-to-face summit, a sustainability summit, sometime in the fall after we hope the crisis is over. And so it's very, I think, a very innovative way to deal with it. Also highly sustainable, so that seems appropriate. So.
Thank you, Senator. Sure, you want to speak? Fine.
Sure. Jonas McApinlack, I'm the Chief Marketing Information Officer. So to the other conference, the GSAT conference, which is the Guam System for Assistive Technology, which provides use of assistive technology and training in assistive technology to individuals with disabilities. So every year they hold a conference at the Micronesia Mall and at another venue where they bring people together to learn about assistive technology. This has been postponed, not canceled. So it'll be announced at a later date when that's going to happen. It's a very important conference for that group here in Guam. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Senator Amanda Sheldon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank all of my colleagues for being here today, for the questions that you posed, everything from the Cancer Trust Fund to campus security and the repository, everything that was on my list as well. And I appreciate all of the answers from the administration, and thank you very much to the Board of Regents for being here as well. I think that we can continue to have this dialogue as we move forward with the budget, and I'm sure you'll be available to us for any questions. So I really appreciate it, and I'm happy to hear of all of the highlights that we have, the great strides that the University of Guam is making. And so we started the week with you at Charter Day, and we're ending the week with you here today. And we're very proud to be with you and to know how you're making our community stronger. So, Situas Masi.
Thank you, Senator Sheldon. There being no one else to testify, and I think, yes, ma'am, you wanted to testify?
I apologize.
Not a problem.
Margaret Hattori, Dean, School of Health. I'll make it short, but I didn't want to miss this opportunity given the pandemic. But I just wanted to point out, and thank you for the accolades about our pass rate, but in many ways, and administration knows, in many ways we struggle every day. Many of us are in our school are working 6 days a week. We only have 2 staff, and I wanted to point out, to emphasize what the president says. Some people think we have too many staff, and I have 2 classified staff. And while we've gotten external grants, we cannot continue without the local appropriations to support those efforts that we are making to get external grants. A good example is our nursing lab. Up until January, we only had 8 beds. 8 beds. And so our infrastructure, we don't have enough money to buy beds or to increase our building size. So we did get an additional grant, our geriatrics grant, that provided us 8 additional beds. GRMC, we practically begged to borrow 2 beds, and they are only being borrowed. The Endowment Foundation was able to raise some funding and gave us 5 beds. But because of that, the faculty agreed to admit 45 students. We do not graduate enough students. It's an embarrassment to me, but we have tried, and we've done a lot to increase retention. However, some of the initiatives, for instance, having an academic advisement specialist, we don't have one. And so that affects our retention. Our building doesn't have enough space for us to actually expand. And so in order to accommodate the 45 students, we're doing day and night classes, which is fine, but the security for the students, particularly because most of our students are female and our faculty are female, is really a priority for us. We have a waiting list of over 200 interested people to become certified nursing assistants, and I cannot run more than 2 cohorts in a year. And in fact, because we're so strapped for people and space, we consider not continuing another cohort past the one I currently have. But there's 200 people on a waiting list. We have a caregiver program that we started last November, and many of us have had to hire caregivers for our own loved ones. There are very few formal training programs, so the public is hiring people off the street that are not trained. And we have a very good caregiver training program. I cannot even schedule one for the rest of the calendar year because I don't have the space or the faculty to carry that out. And so while it sounds great because we have a 4 years of a great pass rate, it's not without a lot of suffering behind the scenes, and we don't even know if we can continue that pace. And lastly, sorry, I talk too much, but lastly, the nursing program only has the students for 2.5 years. They have to have 1.5 years of general education. My colleagues in the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences and CNAS don't have enough faculty. When you hear that nursing students can't get in the program, a large part of that is because they can't get into microbiology, chemistry, and so there's a backlog of students. And so the frustration isn't always that they can't get into my nursing classes, they can't even get into the science classes. And so it's just a huge domino effect. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to implore you to really look at our budget from a holistic perspective. And while we have great successes, we're on the brink of, I feel sometimes we're on the brink of collapse in some areas. Sorry, to be dramatic.
Doc? I'm happy you asked to speak. I'm just going to ignore this side. I'm going to look at you. And the reason why, because it's what's going on the island today, what's going on in the nation. And to know that you graduate, you know, you've got a lot of graduates, but you're going to burn out.
Right,
You should never
right.
be. And I've just whispered to Senator Shelton, says, we're going to look into your area specifically. So, Doc, don't take offense to that, Dr. Christ. We're going to watch what's going on there because that's a program that should have been better funded or better entertained. The Aqua is taking off. Finally got that going, okay? So we need to take care of the nursing program. We need to figure that one out.
But keep in mind, they require those GEs, and they require facilities. So we're
gonna focus on you, okay? Some other areas may not get the attention, Doc. Okay, so let's just. We need. There's certain areas that need more attention than the other. We're gonna be upfront. You're not gonna get all the money you want, but there's certain areas the university needs attention. Needs attention. You know, we identified 3.5 to funding. I bet if she got $1 million and it took care of her area, she'd be happy. So we're going to have to sit down with your oversight and yourself, and we'll take a look at what we can do. Okay? And then we'll move from there. And I hope we're able to come to some agreement, mutual understanding of where the government is at and where we need to help you get to where you need to be, the University of Guam. Okay? And there is no one else to testify. This committee will conclude this budget hearing. The committee will continue to receive testimony for a few more days and weeks. Please address your written testimony to the Committee on General Government Appropriation and Housing. Submit it via email to Senator Joe S. Agustin at gmail.com. Say Juice Masi for your attendance and participating in today's hearing. And for those at home, thank you for watching. This budget hearing on Bill 282-35 LS relative to the University of Guam is now adjourned at 3:38. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Cheers, Masi.